My name's Andrea Adair, and I live in Lakeland, Florida. I was very active before I had cancer the first time. In 2004, I was running and fishing, doing yoga, gardening, hiking with the Florida Trail Association. And once I had that lumpectomy, I had some scar tissue that did interfere with my ability to run. I eventually had to just give up running because the scar tissue created a condition called costochondritis, which made it difficult for me to breathe. And I would periodically over the years try to go back to running and just couldn't do it. So, and during those years, you think about recurrence and what you're going to do. So when I found a lump 7 years later, I decided to have a mastectomy, knowing that I'd be able to go back to running because I was not going to choose reconstruction, surgical reconstruction. That through the standard breast forms and the custom breast prosthetics that I'd be able to get my fitness routine back right away with a minimal interruption, just the time it took to heal from the surgery, and then I'd be able to go back to being active, doing yoga, and then going back to running, which was something to really look forward to for me after years of not doing it. With the first diagnosis, I didn't know anything about breast cancer. It hadn't been in my family. None of my girlfriends had had it. I was 46, and I was quite shocked because I thought breast cancer was a lot simpler than it is. There's a lot of different types of cancers which just formulate into a variety of different treatment options and recovery, and the future, which would be reconstruction, standard breast forms, custom prosthetics, what you want to do about how you're going to look after surgery, which is sometimes not something you're thinking about right away because you get overwhelmed with the initial diagnosis. So since I had found my lump early and didn't really have to do anything but a lumpectomy, I didn't give a lot of thought to reconstruction at that time. But after I got through that process and started getting involved with different breast cancer foundations to do fundraising and talking to other women, I spent some time thinking about what I would do if it ever happened again. So when I got a second diagnosis, it was easier for me to think about what to do because I knew the options that were out there that would help me get my life back where I really wanted it to be. Because that's your biggest concern when you get a cancer diagnosis, is how much life do you have left and what are you going to do with it? For me, once I had surgery, I was in the hospital. I went in on a Wednesday, and then the next morning, they came around about 8 o'clock in the morning. They asked me if I wanted to go home. Of course, I'd been on morphine all night, so I wasn't really sure. I hadn't seen my scar yet or what had happened, so I wasn't sure I should even be leaving the hospital. But I felt pretty good, and I got up and I washed myself up in the bathroom and put on a shirt and some of my own pajamas. And the doctor came by and she said, well, if you're able to do all that, you should go home. All of my sutures were on the inside, so it was not, I didn't have any stitches to be removed. I did have a drain. That drain came out the following Tuesday, which they said was really a quick time for the drain. Usually the drains are in for 2 weeks. So I was able to have that removed right away. So it helped me heal up pretty quick because I wasn't doing any other surgeries. If I'd have done reconstruction, I'd have been tied up a lot longer because I would have had to have done skin grafts as I had done radiation the first time, so they won't use that skin. I'm not sure where I'd pulled the skin grafts from. And I also would have needed an adjustment on my healthy breast so that it would be a mirror image of the one that I was having implanted. And looking at all of that surgery, that was not something I really wanted to do. I've seen one of my neighbors go through skin grafts, and I just didn't want to go that route. By just having a mastectomy, I was going to be a lot healthier, a lot faster, and be able to get my life back where I was wanting it to be. Right before my surgery, when I talked to my surgeon about what we were going to be doing after that, and I told him I didn't want to do reconstruction, he had mentioned that West Coast Brace and Limb had been out to do a presentation and that they had custom breast prosthetics as well as breast forms, and that he thought that might be an option for me because I had discussed with him how disappointed I was that I couldn't go back to running. And that was one of the main reasons that I didn't want to do surgical reconstruction, because I didn't want anything to interfere with my fishing or being active. So he had given me some information. So while I was at home recovering and had a chance to look through the documents that he had given me, I had started calling around and making appointments that as soon as I was going to be able to drive while I was off work, I thought I would drive around and start interviewing and actually seeing what was out there, what was available, touching it, talking to various organizations about what they had before I made a commitment to go with anybody. And I came over here to West Coast Brace and Limb and met with Shayla, and she spent at least an hour or more with me and pulled everything she had out of the closet and talked about every option that was out there. I had done a little research at home, but it's not like actually seeing what's available and getting a chance to touch it and think about it before you have to make a decision. Some of the options, like going with a custom breast prosthetic, would have been something I would have needed to have been completely healed up for before I could actually even start that process. So having a standard breast form available ahead of time would help me when I went back to work, so that I could have a normal look while I was working on getting a custom prosthetic made.